Hey folks, it is Monday morning. Just headed to CrossFit. We're going to be going to Reddit for a topic today. I guess I should probably get my GPS on too. Hold on a sec. Don't want to forget about that so I don't get stuck in traffic. The topic though is going to be regarding, are you just comfortable at work? I think this one's kind of interesting, especially given some of the responses I saw in the thread. Not because, I don't know, not like they were bad or like crazy or anything like that, but I think, I don't know, a couple different angles on things. So with that said, if you're interested in having questions answered in software engineering or career development, just leave them below in the comments. Send a message to DevLeader on social media. Let's get to it. I guess I need my sunglasses too. One sec. Okay, so the original poster was writing about this, kind of saying, does anyone else kind of feel this way? And they're describing their current situation in their career. So they're a software developer. They're saying, historically, like there's always a really big push for more in software engineering. And kind of sneezed. I stopped myself. Amazing. And they were saying that their manager, like historically, has been kind of pushing them towards them moving into management. And they're like, I'm just pretty content. There it is. I knew it was going to come back to haunt me. So they said, like, I like being a software developer. I like, being in there, like coding, doing like hands-on problem solving. Like, I enjoy that part. And, management kind of seems like, at least at their company, there's like semi-regular turnover. And they're just like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable doing what I'm doing. Like, good benefits, good pay. I like the work I'm doing. Like, why do I need, like, why more, right? Why a change? And so I thought this would be fun to talk about for a few different reasons. Like, one is because I think in general, there is always this push in software engineering. I'm sure this is the case for some other careers too, but where it is always more, in terms of your career progression and things like that. And I've talked about this in other videos, but the idea that, for many people, especially say younger people, it might be the case where you are like, your career progression is like one of the things you care about most, right? Often that comes with, better compensation, more responsibility, that kind of stuff. And that is like exciting and motivating. But, some different perspective is that maybe that reaches a point where that's not the thing that motivates you anymore. So the thing that I find interesting about that, I guess, I feel like we just don't talk about it enough in general. And when I say we, I mean, like, we should be having career conversations with our managers, right? And I think that when you're reflecting on your own career progression, for some individuals, you may very well reach a point where the things that motivated you when you were younger, or I shouldn't even say just younger, like just previously, your motivations and stuff will change. Right? Like, for example, I always go back to, like, I work at Microsoft right now, and before Microsoft, I was at a startup, and I just used to work nonstop. I just used to do that. And, like, I cannot do that with Microsoft. And it's not because Microsoft is different or bad or whatever. It's because now I'm married. Right? I have other responsibilities outside of just myself. When I was fresh out of university, like I literally didn't have other responsibilities, just me, and I'd go to the gym. That was my life. So the things that we value will change, right? So this person's saying, like, for where they're at in their life, it's a pretty good mix of things. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So I wanted to kind of seed this idea, especially with the younger audience, that there it doesn't have to be perpetually like this pressure that you need to be getting somewhere else. Although, admittedly, like especially as managers, like perhaps we are pretty bad at that in terms of always trying to push. I feel like that is kind of our responsibility, though. We do want you to grow in your careers, right? We want you to excel what you're focused on and where you want to go. But I think a lot of the time that where you want to go part, we're assuming is just like more and more growth and responsibility. So, I'm kind of saying this out loud too, because as managers, we play a part in that. And maybe at some point for certain individuals, we're creating a different pressure and they see that as the only way. Right? Maybe you're comfortable in your role, like this person who wrote this post on Reddit, and by working with your manager, you're still feeling this pressure of like, you need to be doing more. So I wanted to bring up this concept that there is like this idea, and I think I don't know if I'm assuming the naming convention is like relatively standard, but it's called like a terminal level. Okay, and I've said this in other videos too, like kind of sporadically, but companies will have a concept generally of like a terminal level, and that means a level that should be like it's okay for people to kind of get to and stay there. So, for example, at a big tech company, you might have like a senior software engineering position is okay as a terminal level, where they don't actually expect that everyone will get to staff or principal, depending on where you are. But in fact, they're able to say, you know what? We have really, really solid engineers at senior, and like we're okay with that. Like if we have a senior engineer that's been senior for 10 years and they don't have an interest in going beyond that, then that's not a problem. The reason that this is called out is because if you think about like a lower level role, imagine that you had a junior developer that was junior for 10 years. Right? That's probably an issue. It's probably an issue from a company's perspective, right? Like a company wants to be able to invest into their employees. So they do want to see growth. They want to make sure that as they have employees, that these employees that are staying with the company are growing and getting better. So a junior, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like a junior developer that's junior for 10 years is probably not a great person to keep on board with a company, because after 10 years, they're still sort of contributing as a junior. And you can kind of keep making this argument up to a certain point where people are like, well, we feel actually okay about that. And that's where you might get someone like a senior software engineer where it's like, that's totally fine. Like that person could be with the company for many, many years. They're operating at a senior level, and that's great. And then beyond that, that is actually more reserved for people that are looking to go beyond. We don't expect that everyone's going to want to perform at that level with those responsibilities. Right? So just something to keep in mind that this type of thing exists. And I don't know, like, if you haven't heard of that before, I don't want that to sound like scary or anything. I feel like that's actually that should be a comforting thing to know that, especially if you're junior in your career, it's like, as long as you're continuing to progress over the years, like, no problem. And you will, right? It's like, I think it would be very difficult to not be making progress as a junior developer if you're showing up and putting in the effort. But there's going to be a point where, like the responsibilities and workload don't just keep scaling until you're like, well, it's impossible. And for some people, you will meet a threshold sooner than others where you're like, I'm pretty comfortable at this level. So terminal levels do exist. And sort of the things that you value may change over time. Like, I think both of these are really big factors. The thing that I thought was particularly interesting when I was scanning through some of the comments on this one, though, was like, everything I just said feels kind of like, okay, sure, that's not really new, unless you didn't know about the terminal level thing. Like, makes sense, priorities are going to change. But there were some people that were like, hey, look, like, that's exactly how I feel pretty comfortable, worked my butt off throughout my career, I'm in a good spot, and like, I don't need more. In particular, like, I don't need more money. Like, sure, more money's nice, but I don't need that. Which I think is probably, realistically, that's an amazing spot that most of us would strive to be in, right? To be able to say, like, I feel like I don't need to work any harder for more money because I'm good where I'm at. That's a good comfort kind of feeling. But this is being offset by some people going, that's how I feel, but I'm concerned about AI. Right? Because it's like, I feel like for these engineers that we're talking about, they're actually, they're very far along in their career. One guy was saying he's like 30 years into his career. Right? So these are experienced engineers. They're at the point in their career where they're saying, I'm pretty comfortable, like, I like being hands-on, problem solving, but I don't need to move to management for some other type of challenge. I don't need like even more on my plate. Like, things are good. And these individuals are saying that they're kind of starting to go, am I going to be made redundant? Is AI basically going to change the way we're working so much that, like, I need to think of a different way? So there's a kind of a mix of things, like this redundancy argument, and then also like, how much time do I need to spend actually like skilling up with AI? And these things were kind of mixed into the conversation, which I thought was, again, maybe for some more junior people, you're like, well, duh, like, that's what we're all terrified about. But I'm saying this because these are the individuals that are sort of much further along in their careers, and they're nervous about it or considering it, because it is potentially, when I say potentially, I feel like pretty high likelihood it's going to disrupt how they've been working. And if they've been comfortable a certain way, that comfort might change. And I don't mean because like necessarily their job is just going to be replaced by AI, but their way of working, I feel like everyone's way of working in software engineering is being impacted. This part's not necessarily a bubble. The AI tools aren't just going to snap our fingers and they're going to disappear tomorrow. So for these people that might have been like, I'm pretty comfortable in my career, it might be a situation where they're like, I think I have to figure out how I'm going to be working with AI tooling and whatever else in the age of AI, where they are still relevant. Now, for me, I don't think they have to do much that's like crazy to stay like up to date on it. I would just encourage people, like, use the tools, like explore them, see how they fit in. And if you're using them and constantly going like, nothing works for me, it's always crap, there's no benefit to AI at all, I would say there's probably things you need to improve on still. And I say this, as someone who's been pretty dissatisfied with agents. I am trying to learn more about agents and like doing, more like headless agent swarm kind of development, because the only positive agent experience I've had was with Copilot in GitHub. That's it. Everything else has been terrible. But there are people that are having success with it. So instead of me just blaming like, oh, it's like, I'm just making it someone else's problem. No, like, that's probably going to be my problem at some point. So let me take the responsibility now and try figuring it out so that I can improve. And that's kind of my logic for these individuals that might be nervous or saying like, I've been comfortable, but now I don't know. It's like, start using these things. Right? Like to give you an example, the agent stuff I've talked about where I've been dabbling is not in my day job. It's for something called Brand Ghost that I'm building. And like when it wasn't working in the IDE, it's like, cool. Like I'm just not going to force myself to do that. And then when Copilot with pull requests came out and I tried it again with Brand Ghost, I was like, hey, this is working really well. I will use that as part of my development. There's a fire truck. There's more fire trucks. I guess that's to be expected. Sorry, there's a lot of fire trucks. And then people are being pretty stupid at the intersection. The light is, oh, that's why. The light, you can't see it, obviously. The light for me is red at the intersection, but it's red for everyone because the firehouse is like 2 feet away from me, so it must be controlled. Anyway, so like my point is that I'm finding, like I'm trying it out, and when it works, that I'm using it. But I'm not going to keep, like, for the, the other agent stuff that's not working well for me, I'm not going to give up on it, but I'm also not going to block my main workflow, right? So if I'm building in Brand Ghost and trying to use, like, VS Code with Copilot as an agent, if that's, like, a crappy experience for me, I'm not going to say, well, I guess I have no choice and I have to go at, like, a quarter of the speed as normal. No, I'm going to find my way around with tools, find them to be effective, and then find other things that I can experiment with. So periodic, like a good example is the codecommute.com website, right? Like I vibe coded that with ChatGPT. And then I used Copilot with pull requests to do more features on the site. I just launched that video today on YouTube, by the way, where I used ChatGPT to build the whole thing. So that's on my main YouTube channel, DevLeader. And then what I'll be doing, though, is there's probably some stuff on the Code Commute website or even my blog website, devleader.ca, where it would be really fun to go see if I can get like a swarm of agents to go build some features. Like, to give you an example, something that's a low priority, but I think would be cool is like my website looks like crap. I'm not very like artistic. And I think that some things could be more consistent. And the codecommute.com website is even more the case. And I would just love to go have a swarm of agents go see if they can make things more consistent or follow some other, styling guidelines and stuff from other sites that I like. And they can go make that look better without any involvement from me or minimal, right? Maybe in the beginning to sign off. But like that would be cool. Is it a priority for me at all? Like absolutely not. But what is more of a priority is playing with the technology. So if I can find an opportunity where it's not blocking me, then I'm going to try to incorporate that or explore it at least. So anyway, thought it was interesting that even some of the more, senior people are kind of having this thought around being replaced, even though they're very comfortable in their roles. So hope that helps for some perspective, right? Like there is sort of this spot in your career where it's not just more and more and more. And there's a Reddit thread with lots of people that are saying that, which is, I find that comforting, right? To feel like, hey, at some point, for me, I don't know if I ever fit into that because I think part of my personality is like, was always more and more and more. But maybe for me, I will also reach the same point where I'm like, this is a good set of challenges. I'm happy, and that's where it's at. So yeah, that's the video for today. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.